I've been getting a lot of questions lately in places like Twitch chat, comments sections, asking, hey Jem, do you have any tips for how to get out of debt in rank points? I'm at negative 2,000 right now and I do not know what to do about it. And, I mean, there is an answer to that question. I'm just not sure you're going to like it. This question highlights an aspect of mindset that I think is worth talking about, and I'm going to talk about that first, but we will actually get to talking about the way the ranked system works. I promise there will be some new insights about that before the video is done. The thing about this question, how do I avoid rank points debt, is that the answer is either painfully simple or way too complex for me to discuss in one sitting. All that determines rank points debt is whether you win or lose. There are no easy tricks here. In order to gain more points than you lose, you have to win often enough on your series ticket that you get more points back from the ticket than you spent buying it. It's a very obvious fact of how the game works, and it really is the only good answer to that question, but I'm not being particularly helpful answering the question that way. I'm not really coaching someone if they come to me for help and I tell them, try winning instead of losing. So maybe I should get more granular and teach someone how to win and not lose. Well, I've been building a whole YouTube channel around that question since early 2020, and the videos keep coming. It's not like I'm running out of ideas anytime soon. What am I supposed to do? Summarize all that work in 2 minutes in response to a Twitch viewer's question? I don't know what weapon you play. I don't know what level you're playing at, or what decisions you're making, or how good your awareness is, how solid your mechanics are, from a Twitch comment. It's like texting your doctor asking for a diagnosis without providing any information about the symptoms you're having. There's a reason why, when I coach people, we watch a recorded video of how they play. When people know what they need to work on, they just work on it, and they get better at it. When people don't know what they need to work on, that's when they come to me. So I can't just listen to someone write or speak about what their problems are in game and expect to be able to coach them. They don't know what it is that they don't know. They don't know what they need to fix. And that's part of the point of getting a coach, to find someone who does know that and can give them a more useful set of goals to work toward than they've come up with on their own. This sort of question is results-oriented rather than process-oriented, to use terms people have been using in the working world for a while. Usually when people use those two terms, they're talking about how to measure your success, and this is a useful aspect to mention for Splatoon. Not every variable that causes you to win is within your control. Winning and losing is a good but imperfect measure of your effort, and it takes a larger sample size of matches before something like a player ranking means anything, especially in a team game. If you focus just on your contributions, though, the things you can control, the way you get to a win, the plays that you make as an individual, now all of those variables are completely under your control, and you'll only hold yourself accountable to what you stand a chance of accomplishing yourself. Another advantage of being process-oriented, though, is that it leads you more naturally to thinking critically and asking more useful questions to learn from. Instead of thinking, how do I win and not lose, you're not worried about that at all, and instead you're thinking, how do I have an outsized impact on whether the tower in the middle of the map goes one way and not the other? Which is already a much more specific, useful question to ask. It's still not a particularly good one, because the answer to that depends heavily on your weapon and team comps, what your team is doing, what the enemy team is doing, but at least now we're talking in terms of decision-making and execution within an individual game of Splatoon, the kinds of skills that are underlying causes of wins and losses. Finally, what is possibly the biggest advantage of process-oriented thinking is that winning and losing have psychological weight. We get angry or sad or frustrated at losses, and we feel excited, satisfied when we win. If we're worried we're going to lose and feel those negative emotions and not win and feel those positive emotions, our emotions can generally swing pretty negatively. And negative emotions like that have this nasty way of shutting down our critical thinking. Thinking back to my time as a competitive Super Smash Bros. Player, the times I lost to a player that was ranked lower than me were the times where I had it in my head, I shouldn't be losing to this guy. Thinking that took my head away from, they're approaching me with this move, which has this range, so I need to back up to avoid getting hit, and then put it on something else that wasn't helping me win the game. Now, having made a series of videos, how to get out of C rank, how to get out of B rank, it's understandable that someone might say, I'm in debt in S+, how do I get out? Expecting help with common mistakes players make in S+. That's still way too big of a question for a Twitch comment, as the S Plus video is 33 minutes long and it's tightly scripted and I don't have it all memorized to recite on the spot, but at least there's a precedent for me sharing that kind of information and maybe being able to summarize it. And that brings us to the discussion of the ranked system, and the reason I haven't been making a similar series of videos like that for Splatoon 3. Splatoon 3's letter rankings barely mean anything compared to how useful they were in Splatoon 2. I made a video defending Splatoon 2's ranking system a while back, and if you want some background on how that works, I'd direct you to go watch that, but here's what you need to know to understand the point I'm making. Splatoon 2 and Splatoon 3 both use a ranking system called Glicko 2. It's a variation on the well-known ELO system, with improvements added by a statistician named Mark Glickman, hence Glicko. In Splatoon 2, when you played League battles or Splatfest Pro battles or X-Rank battles and got this 4-digit number called a power, that number was your rating in the Glicko 2 system. Glicko 2 itself is a top-notch system used by other respected competitive games, and I'd argue that the way Glicko 2, a system made for 1v1s, is applied to matchmaking for a team game isn't the problem either, at least not a very big or even solvable one. I've found that your Glicko power is a very, very good predictor of your likelihood to win matches of Splatoon. But even when they've got this system of math to work with, Nintendo still has to wrap in-game systems around it, and this is where I take issue with Splatoon 3's design. In Splatoon 2, your ranking was based on your Glicko score, albeit a little indirectly. The amount of progress you made toward clearing your bar and the number of cracks your bar got for losing depended on the Glicko ratings of you and the other players in the game. Skipping a rank was achieved by having a higher Glicko rating than the target number for that rank. You could estimate someone's rank pretty accurately by knowing their Glicko score, and knowing their rank gave you a pretty reliable range of Glicko scores they'd be around. Once you hit X rank, the Glicko power was revealed to you and became the primary metric for showing your progression, despite that Glicko 2 was the major determining factor in where you ranked even before then. But in the Glicko 2 system, your rating is capable of dropping. In Splatoon 3, Nintendo made the design decision that the player would not demote except by dropping by a set amount at the end of every ranking season. You don't have a bar that can break anymore, sending you below your current rank. Once you've made it to S+, you're S+, even if you lose every match you ever play in S+. This created an irreconcilable discrepancy between the Glicko system and the letter rankings. If you're not going to demote players, you can't decide their ranking based on Glicko. So Glicko 2 has very close to no impact whatsoever on your letter rankings. The lack of an ability to demote is just an unambiguous problem, in my opinion. Even if the only goal here was to be compassionate to players who lose games, the problem is that we're letting them rank up into places they can't rank down from, so we're permanently increasing the difficulty of their matches without letting them drop if they can't hang there. Nobody wants to be the weak link on a stronger team. While it might be a little frustrating to drop down a level, at least dropping down a level puts you up against players you can beat more often, and you're not just stuck matching against players that are out of your league until you improve enough to hang with them. I would argue that being able to demote feels better than not having to demote and instead experiencing what it's like to live with life-ruining credit card debt. But it gets weirder than that. I recently had a conversation with Oatmeal Dome, the data miner whose work I heavily relied on in researching the previous video on the Glicko 2 system. They've confirmed a couple things for me. Firstly, you're not locked into playing Anarchy matches with players at the same letter rank as you. Really, I already knew this. I've heard of people as low as B+, getting matched against players that already have the S+ badge on their splash tags. Secondly, Glicko 2 is completely separate from the letter rankings. They do not interact with each other in any way, save for one minor exception that we'll talk about in a second. With Glicko 2 divorced from the rating system, letter rankings just scale with win rate. And the problem with that is that win rate only means anything relative to the players you're playing against. Unlike in Splatoon 2, The ranking system will not reduce the points lost or increase the points won against strong opponents. It doesn't increase the points lost or decrease the points won against weak opponents. There is one small way in which Glicko 2 factors into the letter ranking, but it's not nearly as impactful as it was. When matchmaking, the game has a few different priorities for deciding which players to match up against each other. This includes things like the ping between the players, in other words, how strong their connection is to each other, the average weapon range of the two teams it constructs, and the skill-based matchmaking factors we're discussing, and it comes up with the best compromise of all of those factors to make the best match it can. Specifically, when it makes a match, it factors both Glicko 2 rating and the player's letter rankings into consideration. So you are still more likely to get more difficult matches at higher letter ranks, assuming that higher rated players in the Glicko 2 system are likely to earn their way up to a higher letter rank. But that's it. And that creates a much weaker correlation between the two systems than existed in Splatoon 2. What can theoretically happen is that a player plays often enough and gets a high enough win rate in lower ranks that they reach, say, S+, but their Glicko 2 rating is lower than average for that rank. Their matchmaking will be a compromise of players at their Glicko rating, who may come from much lower ranks than S+, and players from S+ rank. This is especially likely to happen because you can rise through the letter ranks with less than a 50-50 win rate. It's possible to gain more points than you lose on a series ticket, even though you won 2 games and lost 3 due to the medals the game awards you. Even if you don't go positive on a ticket, getting, say, 1 win and 3 losses, those medals add up to the point where it may not be anywhere near as big a loss as the gain will be on a 3-win, 3-loss ticket that you get the next round. So you can theoretically advance through some ranks despite having as low as a 40% win rate. I don't know that this is what's happening for sure, this is speculation, but it seems to me that it's possible that players can get into the ranks that they're currently in by already having below a 50% win rate, and then because the letter rank is raising, they're dropping even lower than that win rate, because now matchmaking is skewed toward placing them with people with a higher letter rank. Frankly, as far as I'm concerned, letter ranking doesn't mean all that much in Splatoon 3 right now. I wouldn't have as much of a problem with that if you had your Glicko 2 rating to use for goal setting, but sadly there are very few instances in Splatoon 3 where any approximation of your Glicko rating is shown to you on screen. It flashes quietly at you when playing a Splatfest and looking at your rating in pro matches, and there may be a time here or there that I missed, but at the beginning of a Splatoon 2 match, it would show the average power level of the 8 players in the lobby, so you had an idea before the game started how strong everyone was likely to be. In League Battles and X-Rank, neither of which are currently in Splatoon 3, but are coming, you got to see your number exactly. This leaves us in a position where, while the matches we're getting should still be reasonably close matches that do actually test our abilities to an extent, the results we get, the rankings, the points, they don't really tell us as much as they used to about how skilled we are compared to other people. S plus 50 doesn't feel like a very compelling goal for me. Very early on, Shaq, one of the best players in North America, known for his time on FT Win, asserted that S plus 50 isn't a measure of skill anymore so much as a measure of how much time you've spent playing ranked. And based on what I know about the system, I mostly agree. So I can't give you a very helpful answer about how to get out of rank points debt, but I also would say not to worry that much about being in rank points debt, because frankly, while it's presented like you're digging a hole you'll never make it up out of, if you analyze the system, it doesn't really mean very much right now. Your matchmaking still has a chance to be with players that are somewhat close to your skill level, and you'll still have both good and bad games. When we were presented with this system, it was noted that the method of adjusting ranks may change in future updates. I hope later on in the game's lifespan, the devs bring Glicko 2 to a more prominent place in the game's design. Whether they have to bring that in from X Battles or League Battles, or whether they actually implement that in Anarchy Series, either way, I hope it's there. Because it really was the most functional element at the core of Splatoon 2's system, the part that I could not criticize, the part that made everything else work as effectively as it did. But for now, let's just focus on the skills we can learn and the improvements we individually can make, instead of stressing about made-up Squid money. I'm willing to give the devs some time to make improvements. The game is fun. The metagame is diverse and interesting, and it brought a whole lot of new people in. Whether it ends up changing effectively or not, I'm still here, and I'm willing to help by giving you helpful goals to work towards, provided, of course, you give me enough information to reasonably answer your questions.